Welcome to the Film Garage 208 podcast. My name is Sarah and this is Daniel.
Hello.
Hello. Today we have with us Garrett, and he's the owner of Prevail Legacy Builders.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Hello.
Thanks for having me.
Are you like mainly located here in East Idaho, or I just need to know more about your business?
Yeah. So the business, there's a whole evolution that we'll probably get into of what got us here. But so Prevail Legacy Builders, I act as a coach and a help to people who are trying to grow and scale their businesses after I've done it for the past several years myself. Yeah. So I do go into Boise and Salt Lake and some of those areas, but for the most part, I try to stick around here as much as I can.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So what is your background expertise then when you say help grow?
Yeah.
In what ways?
Well, and that's where it gets a little diverse, I guess you would say. So like I started so I went to college, got my degree in business from BYU, Idaho. Right after that, I went to work for my uncle, my dad and my cousin at HK Contractors. So local contracting company here in town.
I feel like I've seen that name around.
Yeah. Yep. You'll see it around. Yep.
Yeah.
And so then from there, my dad and I started a bike shop, worked together in a bike shop. My wife and I owned Mrs. Powell's, and we were partnered in the cocoa bean here locally.
Okay.
Then we started a real estate company, property management company. And then I was still working full time for my cousin. My dad sold HK to Old Castle. Okay. And so then for about 10 or 12 years, I worked for Old Castle.
So did you have all those businesses at the same time consecutively, or you weren't like jumping to each one?
No. So so I was at HK or Old Castle the whole time. Okay. And then went to the bakeries at Cocoa Bean, Mrs. Powell's, same time. The bike shop, and that kind of goes into the story, but the bike shop, the motorcycle shop, River City Custom Cycles, we kind of learned all of our hard lessons there. So we were in business for 3 years. That was it. Yeah, we owned that for 3 years. Then we shut it down and then moved on to the other
all
things.
of these here in Idaho Falls?
Yeah. They're now like our real estate company and property management company. We spread from St. Anthony to Pocatello as far as the properties that we own, but still here for the most part.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And then in 2019, I left Old Castle. And
what is Old Castle?
So Old Castle is the company who bought HK Contractors.
So it's
a big conglomerate,
company.
actually based out of Ireland, and a big publicly traded company. Bought them.
What is this again? Some castle?
Old Castle.
Old Castle.
Yeah, Old Castle, CRH they call themselves, but big conglomerate. Okay. And that's when things changed for me. I mean, it's a good company, but it's a big company, right? So we went from family-owned business and we just lost it. So in 2019, I had an opportunity to go and really start our own construction company. So we grew that, Avail Valley Construction. And I had some partners from Minnesota, and we grew that from about $4 million a year to $63 million a year.
63?
63, yeah. Jeez. So last year, 2023 was 63.
Over how long of a time?
5 years.
Nice.
Yeah, 5 years.
Nice
so
good for you.
Yeah, 17 employees to 180. And so
that's big scale quickly.
Yeah.
That's so fast.
That's huge. It was.
Yeah.
And so like when I help, like you ask, who do I help? Well, I've seen it all from startup to small to bakeries. Like in the bakeries, we were getting to about $1.13 million per store or per business.
Nice.
And so, smaller, retail, different. And then
but
we
for
go
a bakery and like that's like
it was
like a lot.
It was good. They were great. Yeah, great. Yeah. The interesting part of it is like, so my dad and I did this bike shop, and it was kind of just on the side because I was working and he was working, and like it was fun.
Doing this on the side.
Yeah.
So you just like started a business on the side.
Enthusiasts?
Oh yeah. Well, not as much. So more like when you get old, like I am, you don't ride motorcycles as much, you know, but we loved them. Yeah. We used to ride all the time. And so that was fun. But the problem is it burned us out because it was not a business. It was just
a hobby.
It was a hobby. Yeah. And we were just self-employed pretty much. You know what I mean? And so like that's taxing. You start wearing yourself out.
Draining.
You could do something you love turns into something you despise.
Yeah. Real
like,
quick.
It happened to us. And I was like, whoa. So then my wife comes home one day and like, she's not as adventurous as I am, but she comes home one day because she knew I was always interested in businesses. She's like, hey, Mrs. Powell's is for sale. And I was like, sweet. And she's like,
mentions a random business for sale. As if you're
somehow
not gonna buy it.
she saw it on social media or something. Yeah. So she's like, and I was like, well, would you like that? And she's like, yeah, I think I'd like that. And she had not ever said yes to anything, right? And so like,
and she's not a baker, you're not a baker.
She is a baker. She loved to bake. So it was like her hobby and passion.
So
and so it made sense to her, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
And so anyways, I think the next time I walked in the door, I was like, hey, guess what? We own Mrs. Powell's.
Oh my
and she's
God,
like,
stop.
What?
Was it like on a website for sale, or how'd you know?
No, I think she saw it on Facebook.
Like Marketplace.
And then
or
I
something.
just went and hunted them down and just started talking to them. And
Like a lower in their offer?
I think we did negotiate it a little bit, but not too much. Like, and this is nothing.
fair.
This is nothing against them or anything, but it had become a business that had probably lost a little bit of traction over the years, maybe for other reasons. And so, like, it was not like a super sexy business at the time. Like, it was a turnaround situation, right? And so that was kind of exciting. If I go back, so when my dad and cousin sold HK to Oldcastle. I had decided to go back at that point and get my master's degree from Gonzaga University.
Okay, nice.
What'd you graduate initially with?
Yeah, so it was business at BYU, Idaho. And then at Gonzaga, it was organizational development and leadership was the degree, the master's. And so I'd got that. And then they started this initiative where they wanted a couple of people to go throughout the whole United States. So they had like 63 HK contractors throughout the United States at the time. This was like in 2009.
When it was your family business?
No, this is after they sold. This was Oldcastle.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And so
So they kept everyone from HK.
They kept everyone. And HK was doing, I'll probably get the numbers wrong, but we were over $100 million a year at HK when they decided to sell.
Nice.
And then, but there were like 63 other.
You said general contracting? Is that what that was?
Home
No,
building?
like it was like infrastructure, civil, like highways, all the way to driveways, paving parking lots, utilities,
Like highways,
lines.
freeways.
Interesting.
Yep.
Okay.
Interesting.
So,
Okay.
Oldcastle said, hey, we need a couple people to be like internal consultants and go throughout the United States and work with these 63 businesses. So we worked with McKinsey & Company, which is a big consulting firm.
Yeah.
And we were the kind of the expertise, the industry expertise, and they were the consultants. We created what we called an operating system, a performance system. So what I did with a small team is we went to all 63 businesses and we would visit with them. We'd analyze their current business. We would implement the operating system. We would build them back better. And then we would help monitor for like the next 3 years to see how they
Were these
progressed.
similar businesses with like your same like infrastructure?
Yeah, they were all like HK.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. And so I did that and it was like, it was.
So this kind of a business, you're like a handyman for like giant projects, like to be able to do all these different things.
Yes.
So like, how do you learn and manage all that? You know, like
that's a good question.
seems like a lot to take in.
Yeah. Well, so experience. So that was the crazy thing. So like we learned this on pretty big businesses. We learned from McKinsey, which is like a big consulting firm, right?
Okay.
And then I go and try to apply it to like the bike shop, or I go and try to apply it to Mrs. Powell's or the Cocoa Bean. And it's like, it doesn't work. That's why we failed with the bike shop, because it doesn't work. Like big business, small business is different.
I see.
So then what I started doing,
Yeah.
I get my master's and I start modifying it to have it work for small business, because small business and big business are the same. They're different, but they're the same. They're still business principles, right?
Okay.
So I had to figure out like what system it is works for small, big. And then I was just fortunate to get a chance at small business, medium-sized business, big business.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you figure out what works and what doesn't work, and then how to apply it in each scenario.
Sure.
So then it was just through personal experience growing those businesses, you know. And then
very cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then we grew Avail Valley, and you know, partnerships are hard. So for reasons that we don't need to get into, that partnership decided not to work. And so at the beginning of the year, I went a different direction, and I was like, what am I going to do? And we hadn't had it all resolved at the moment. So I didn't know if I could go back into construction or what. And so I was like, I'm going to help people. Because of my experience at Oldcastle, I bounced around to these companies.
Yeah.
And I was like, I loved it. I loved, you know, analyzing their business and putting plans together with them and helping them. So I was like, I love to do that. And then I was looking and I'm like, there's such a need for that in small business.
Totally.
Right? Because how many people in small business start because they have a passion
Yeah.
and end up frustrated and burned out and quit or ready to quit?
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. So there's so many people that I could help, because when we take our business systems and put them in, it can relieve that pain from the business owner, because like, this is the story. This is how it always happens. I love to coach kids, training. I love to train kids.
Okay.
So I start training kids. I'm really good at training kids. So then pretty soon everybody wants to bring their kids to me. And pretty soon it turns into a business. Now I'm having to keep track of who's paid, who hasn't paid. Now I need to hire a couple of other trainers to help me train kids. Now I've got payroll. Now I've got bookkeeping. Now I've got all these things. And then now guess what I spend all my time doing? Now I'm at the gym, but I got a little office in the back.
Not training.
I'm not training.
No.
Everyone else is training.
Now you're hating your
Now
life.
I'm hating it. Right? And I don't have a system in place. And now I'm like, like it happened to us in the bakeries. Like it got to the point where my wife is like, I don't even want to go in anymore.
Like, I can't do it all.
And she
There's
loved
a bad taste in
baking.
your mouth after something like that.
Yeah, even though it was her passion, like she loved baking, And so like, then I started to get really passionate about, because this is like, and this is what I believe, like what drives me, this is what I believe. Small business is the backbone of America. Small business has to succeed. Small business is the ones who put their money back into the communities.
Literally.
Yeah.
Small business is
Right,
the
though.
one, the small business, they're the ones that care. Like, and I'm not saying
Once you
big
realize
business,
that,
Yes.
like to support these small
It can sound
businesses,
cliche,
like,
but
it
once
can.
you're in the position, you realize it. No, you're totally right.
Yeah. I mean, when we were and this is nothing against any other construction company, but when we're at Prevail Valley, my kids go to Rigby High School. So they're like, hey, we want to build a new stadium. So honestly, like I could say the majority of the work that happened there was probably from about 4 or 5 dads who owned companies who wanted to see the school get that product, right? It wasn't, and this is, once again, this is not talking about anybody, but it wasn't the big corporate company that donated a bunch of money. It was the local ones, right? And so like, that's where we're at. Like small business has to succeed, but small business is everything stacked against them. Like everything.
Right.
The government doesn't like you. The IRS, part of the government, doesn't like you. Like nothing likes
Big
you.
box stores.
Nothing
Nobody.
likes you, right?
Yeah.
And so
And you're fighting for attention in the community against all these other businesses.
Yes.
Like it's
who have a huge marketing budget.
Yeah.
Every
Yes.
month.
Yep. Exactly. And and other things like
right.
benefits are
That too.
important.
Health
And
insurance.
how hard is it for a small business to supply benefits? Like they can't, like all this stuff, right? And then, and now we don't have enough time to talk about this, but we've been conditioned by society, our government, and everything else to think that the only way to success is go to school, get a good job, get good benefits, retire, right? Which couldn't be further from the truth.
Right.
But now that's
Terrible
what
plan.
everybody thinks, right?
That sounds miserable.
Yeah. Yeah. So how many times though am I trying to like help somebody by coming to work for me or help somebody to start their own business? And the first question I get is, well, I don't know. What would I do without health insurance? And I'm like, yeah, they got you. Because your mindset holds you back
Like,
now.
I'm screwed. I can't do it.
Because you can't do it, right? Like, and that's where they want us. And so there we are. So like small business has all these things against them. Every reason why the normal person walking around out there has the reason not to go into small business. On top of that, success rate, like 80% of small businesses fail within 3 years. So like it's not stacked up against you. So why do they? Well, they do because they don't have a process. They don't have a system. And they don't have anything to follow. And they've been an employee probably, but they followed somebody else's process and system and they don't understand
lack
it.
of experience
Yeah,
to be able
exactly.
to actually do it.
So
Absolutely.
that's when I started getting passionate. I'm like, okay, I've cracked the code. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying we still don't have business struggles, but like I've cracked the
Better
code.
than nothing, like what you have.
Yeah. So we've cracked the code. Now how do we give this to other people?
Yeah.
You know, type of a thing.
So that's cool. So it's just like literally teaching someone how to properly and be in that mindset of how to run their business and do the processes and step back.
Yeah. And mentoring, like I like to say it. Sometimes it's like when you've been somewhere before, like we were looking for a business because now I'm involved in several businesses. And so we were looking for some space to rent and these guys are showing me around their like warehouse space, right? And it's an older warehouse space and like, we don't know if the lights are going to turn on or not, like, you're right. So
it's one of those.
It's one of those, right? And I'm like, oh, and they're leading me through these dark places. And I'm like, we're going through and I'm like, all right, like this is dark. I'm trying to figure it out. Well, guess what? We turn around and we come back and I'd been through it before. So like now you're just like, oh yeah, I remember this. You go down this, you look for this, the door's over there, right? So just the fact that you've been somewhere before helps you feel comfortable and know, right? And that's what a lot of business owners don't have, is like, they're like, I've never been this before. So like when you can kind of see around a corner, you know what's there. Like it's so helpful. And a lot of it's just confidence. I was talking to a guy last night. He wants to start a business. So I was helping him, and all the questions he was asking, like I had the answers for. I'm not saying they're the right answers or not, but I at least had an answer because I'd been through that before.
Tested
it's
answers.
Like, it's like, and a lot of people just get so scared. Like, I don't even know how to start a business. Like, what paperwork do I have to file? Do I need to get an EIN? How do I register with the Secretary of State? Like all those things. And then guess what they do? They don't do anything,
right?
Because it's so intimidating.
Analysis paralysis.
Exactly.
Freeze.
Yeah, and it's not that anybody's smarter than anybody else. It's just if you've done it before, it's like, no, that's not hard. Like
it is crazy. Yeah, you just have to put one foot in front of the other and just like take that step.
Yeah,
and then with each step you take, it gets a little bit less. For sure. Anxiety.
That was just a piece of paperwork. Why was I so afraid?
It does.
Because it's made to seem scary and like such a big deal. And
it is.
Yeah, when you actually read the fine print, you're like, oh God, what am I signing away?
For sure.
Yeah, like this sounds a lot more serious than I thought.
And I still get, like, one of my bookkeepers called the other day and is like, I can't even remember what it was, but it was basically what she was saying is, hey, it says if we don't do this, there's this huge penalty. And she was like super scared. And I'm like, yeah, they say that it's a threat, but just let's do it. Let's go ahead like this, because you've done it before and you realize, oh, we're not going to jail.
Literally. They're not coming for me right now.
Yeah. Not now.
Not right now.
So.
Right. Okay. So how does it literally work when you work with people?
That's awesome. So like, who do I work with? How do I advertise? It's mostly word of mouth. Like just people
no social
will
media.
refer. I mean, I'm not on social media, but my assistant posts stuff on social media, which even gets me in trouble because then people are like, hey, you put that thing out there. And I'm like,
what are you talking about?
But so there's a little bit of that. Like you can find that there, but it's mostly word of mouth. So like, how does it work? I have a tool. It's a business assessment. And I always it's a free tool. Like somebody fills it out. And when they do, it's about a 30-page PDF document. And it analyzes every part of the business
that you curated.
Nice. Yeah. And so they get this report and it will actually dig into the details and say, hey, from your answers, you're strong here, but maybe here's a weakness, right?
That's awesome.
So I should have bought a drawing with me, but if you could picture an airplane, like a business is like an airplane. Okay. So you have the cockpit and that's like your leadership. So what do we do in leadership? We set the vision. We set the directions. We understand where we're going. We talk about our core values. Like we get those things right. And that's like a cockpit in an airplane because that's where you put your coordinates in. Also from the cockpit's how you communicate with the rest of the cabin. So that's what leadership does, right? So then you go to your product, which is the wings. Because your product, if it's good, like the wings give you lift, but it has to be a good product. Then sales and marketing are the two engines. That's what gives you thrust to get you off the ground, okay? Once you're off the ground, the body of the plane is your operations and your overhead. So that's the part that starts to grow on you or shrink on you. If it grows too big, the plane can't fly. But that's the part that you manage. You have to manage that part of it. And then the next part is your financial engines, which is your fuel tank, which is like cash flow.
Yeah, like literal get you going.
You run out of cash, you're done, right? It doesn't matter how good the plane is, you're done.
And
so
you're landing.
like literally that's a business. And our assessment is around that. So it analyzes all 6 parts of that business and gives you some hints and some keys. So we get that into their hands. Then somebody has this 30 pages of information, like, ooh, and then we do
you give that to them to just like sit down and read on their own.
They fill it out online. It emails them the report. Then they have the report. Yep, immediately.
Oh, cool. Did you make like a software to do that?
Yeah. So I'm actually certified in small business, and that is a tool that comes with that as well.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So do they give you an email to get that, like their info? So you collect that info?
Yeah. So I have that info. I mean, they could go to the website and get it too. Like if they went to my website, but usually it's hey, they're asking questions. I give them the link. They fill out the report.
Sure.
Right? Okay. So, and then after that, we do a consultation where we sit down, we take it all and we make a plan forward. Like, and then from that point, they could decide to, hey, I want to do that by myself. I get it. I want to do it by myself. Yeah. Great. Like, that's good too. I want to see people succeed.
Does that happen to you a lot? I mean, not that you, obviously you say you want people to succeed, but as a business, like, do you find that people do that, take the advice and don't like follow through with your help and just run.
Do it on their own.
Yeah.
Say I can do it. And
so it's
probably
weird.
fail.
Yeah. It's weird because like a lot of the times when I work with somebody, sure, it's about the good ideas and the advice and I've seen that before, but a lot of times it's
I've
just
seen
about
that before.
Yeah.
Constantly.
But a lot
I know about that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm keeping interrupting you.
No,
That's
you're
how
good.
it is
You're
the
good.
whole meeting.
But what it usually is a lot of the times is I end up being an accountability partner for them.
Sure.
It's like going to the gym, right? Like how many times do personal trainers give someone a workout schedule, a workout program, but then they don't go to the gym?
Did you do it?
It doesn't do any good. So what do we usually do when we hire a trainer? We hire the trainer, we meet the trainer at the gym.
Yeah.
Now, and just the fact that we know that trainer's waiting for us at the gym gets us there.
For sure.
That's
So like
a good way around it.
that's how it works with me a lot of the times. Like I'd give somebody the plan. I want them to succeed. If they can go do it, great. But a lot of times they actually need someone there with them to kind of hold them accountable, if you will. And
see that,
and
for
help.
sure.
So that it works that way most of the time. But,
So do you do that like check-in like weekly, monthly, kind of dependent on the person?
With most of my clients on the consulting side of things, we check in weekly. And usually what we're on is a cadence where every other week we're on a Zoom call, every other week we're in person.
Oh, wow. Okay. Because you said a lot of these are actually like pretty local.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, nice. Right. And I will travel down to Utah or Boise, or I have a client in Malad right now.
Yeah.
And so I'll make that, drive. But I'm just old school. I just think there's something about sitting down with someone and being
It is different, getting to sit down with someone.
Yeah. And especially because I like to be part of their meeting. So like a lot of times it's like, do you already have your management meeting or your leadership meeting? Like I want to participate. I want to see,
let's see that,
how the company really is working, right?
Yeah.
More than just talking about it. But everyone's different. Yeah. There are some clients who just want me to interact with them, right? They're the owner. They want to get what they need from me, and then they want to go do it, which is awesome and fine. And then some are like, no, come in and work with my team. Come in and help my team. And so it can vary.
That's actually really interesting because we've seen some things before where people will kind of like complain about an issue, but then you actually see it, like the event happening, and you're like, oh.
Yep.
It's like actually your management of this situation is actually the problem.
Yes.
We noticed it because when we went from assistant managers to store managers, and that slight change, you go from managing like basic day-to-day level to managing the people who manage the day-to-day level.
The managers.
And your job completely changes. And it was that you'd have two conflicts between managers, and you're hearing two sides of the story and having to like, in a constructive way, figure out how to find the truth and like solve it. And it was crazy how many of the times it was actually the adult causing the problem just based on, personal ego or but just the weird personal feelings. And it's just funny, like when you step back and
but just having an outside third party is beneficial, especially if you're like just like a business around here, like not a corporation, not having like a program passed down to you every month, being like, do this training with your group, and you as a manager do this training.
For all of us, we get to a point where the abnormal becomes normal because we're around it so much, right? I was talking to someone yesterday, and like one of the questions he had is, how do I hire good employees? Which is like the question for everybody, right? So how do I hire good employees? And we were talking about it and how he hires and who he brings in and what he does. Yeah. But then at the end of the day, I was like, well, tell me about the rest of your business. And he's like, well, I have these people that work. And I said, okay, but who manages them? Well, this person does and this person does. And I said, okay, tell me about them. Yeah. Like you are making it all about culture. You are making it all about making it a good place to work. But then you hire somebody and then you send them out to work with that guy for the next week. What's that guy's attitude? Yeah.
Is it that culture?
He's like killing the culture.
Yeah.
Right there.
So he's not living the culture. So now what you got is lip service here. And then all of a sudden out here, something else is happening. And then the new employee is like, yeah, this is what you said it was.
What the hell am I doing here?
Because I don't care what you said. This is what I'm getting. Yeah. Like that's
the truth
what it is.
Is out.
Exactly. Yeah. And like full transparency, we all struggle with these things. So here's an experience I had about 3 months ago. Okay. We have an excavation business now that I'm partnered with up in Victor Driggs area. Okay. And I'm sitting with the client and we're going through one of his challenges and struggles. And it kind of results back to, we were talking about core values. And I said to him, do you have your core values clearly defined? Does everybody in your organization know what the core values are? And do you live them? Like legit live them all the time? And we're going through this, and the person that I'm working with is being honest. He's like, well, we try. And the whole time, all of a sudden, I got distracted like squirrel, and my mind went back to my own business. And I was like, I need to sit down and clarify our core values, because we were struggling with a couple of things. And I was like, why are we struggling? Why are we struggling? And then it was like, oh, it's because we need to clarify our core values. We need to be better at that, right? So like, we all drift at times, right? We all drift.
It's things you don't think about when you have like a huge team that you need to really get like clearly through to them.
For sure.
Because that was the thing that our company that we work for, they had some slight changes in values throughout the years, and constantly they were drilling those like 6 words or the phrase or the statement into our brains of, these inclusion and diversity and, just certain, there was like a whole long phrase. I don't know, but it's good stuff. But it was like, they were on top of making sure that we knew what this was.
Yep. It has to get to everybody.
It was interesting because I went from working at a marketing agency that was owned by essentially a family-owned marketing agency. I think it was like
literally a family,
10 to 13 employees. It was really interesting when I went to the retail side of it, owned by like a corporation, and just the structure of the training was just, and nothing against the first company, but just the training was structured and it was regular and consistent, and like having that it just like is eye-opening to, because you need that to really grow to that level of having more people. Because that definitely was a problem that I could see with the smaller agencies. We didn't have those like clear structures in place. So like when the guy before me left and I took his job, there wasn't a booklet I got to read of his job. It was, he had one day of 8 hours that they paid him to teach me everything they could real quick. And then it was like, you're on your own.
Yeah. Good luck.
And that made it way harder. But then at the new place, the corporate, I'm replaceable like that.
Oh, for sure.
Which kind of made me have to work harder knowing that. But I don't know. It was nice having that training though. I guess that's my point.
Well, for sure. And I think people, when they're starting, like, so you talked about communicating core values, you talked about having process, procedure in place, right? Like all those things need to happen in a big business. When we start a small business and it's like me, it's like, why do I need to communicate my core values?
No, it's true.
I know what my core values are.
Like both of us.
I'm pretty solid,
like,
right? Do we align with our core values? You're like talking to 2 people in your head. Yeah, I align. Okay, good. Let's go. Right? How do I do that? Well, you already know how to do it. Just shut up and do it. Okay, let's do it. But then you hire an employee. And now communication has to happen. Now the process has to be there, right? So,
and like communication at their level. Because if where you're thinking of it as a CEO of a business, you're going to have to communicate differently to what they care about as an entry-level employee. And like appealing to them while still getting your main goal done. Right. And just like knowing how to even have that conversation.
Because what is the main goal?
Different for everyone.
Because what is the main goal? Like I believe firmly every business exists to serve their customer, serve their employees, and make profits. Like that's it, right? Those things. So as a business owner, a lot of times you're thinking about paying the bills. We got to make that money. But you can go out to people who work for you and be like, hey, make more money. They're like, first of all, that doesn't even calculate to me. Like what? So we have to then be able to communicate, well, what actions do you need to do to help us make more money? Right? Because now I can help manage that, because it's very self-serving if it's just about make more money, make more money, make more money.
Totally.
Right? But if we can get it into where, hey, this action helps us win as a company. The more we win, the more we all win. And then they're like, oh, I can do that better. I can do that faster. I can do that more. I can do that less. Then it becomes actionable, right? And so,
as long as there's follow-up to make sure those things are good or bad, and stop the bad things. And because not all ideas are good. And, but
not at all. And then follow it. Like that's an awesome one. So do you know what I'm horrible at? Well, I'm horrible at a lot of things, but one thing I'm really bad at is follow-up. Like, so when we were really growing Prevail Valley and it's going, like, all of a sudden we would have our weekly meeting. We called them our leadership meetings, where we'd have the leadership team in on every Wednesday. And we would show up and like, there would be things, action items everybody would take to get done. And we would show up and everybody would say, yeah, I'm going to go do that. I'm going to go do that. I'm going to go do that. Okay, great. We'd show up the next week and I would forget. So I wouldn't ask them.
Who's doing what?
and then another week would go by.
And then
finally a month later, I'm like, hey, weren't you supposed to do that? And so we'd show up in the meeting. I'd say, did you do that? And they're like, no, I kind of forgot about it. So we hired this lady to work for us who's like the opposite of me when it comes to like organization and functionality. She's awesome. And she told me one day, I was talking to her and she told me one day, and I said, I'm just struggling. Like, why aren't people being accountable?
You said that?
I said this to her. Okay. I said, I'm just struggling. I don't want to have to hold people accountable.
She's like, oh.
I don't want to babysit. I don't want to do it. And she did. She said, you know why, Garrett? And I said, why? She said, because they know you're going to forget about it. So everybody's going to tell you yes. They'll do anything you want. You could ask them something so unreasonable. Like, yeah, I'll do it. Sign me up because you'll never ask me again. This will be great. And I'm like, shoot. So what did I have to do? I had to tell her. I said, hey, this is what I need you to do. I want you to come to every meeting with me.
Yeah.
I want you to keep notes. And every meeting we have the next time, I need you to say, hey, what about this, this, and this? And all of a sudden there was accountability. But I'm not good at that. So we have to understand what our strengths and weaknesses are. And everybody wants to surround themselves by people who think like them, act like them. But really what we need to do is surround ourselves with people who are opposite of us.
Yeah.
Right. And so her skill set, and my skill set were so different that we could make a good team.
Yeah.
Right. And so like in business, that's so important to find that.
Yeah.
Right though.
Yeah. Yep.
Is that hard? So you said you work with businesses of all sizes, small. So is that including like individually owned businesses that don't even have employees? Is it to that level?
Yeah, there's I mean, even some startups, even in conception. The interesting thing is where this has all turned. It's been fascinating. I said I'm involved in several businesses now at this point, and the reason why is because when you're collaborating so much, like you find people with ideas, and then you start to work with people with money who want to invest. And then you start putting together teams of different stuff, right? And
so you can get so much more done when you actually have money to spend.
And a team.
Absolutely. So like that's a perfect spot that I found myself in recently is like I think there's three critical parts to any kind of business. This could be a startup, it could be buying an existing business or anything, right? So I've had the fortune over the years of doing things that required money, and even being in spots where I didn't have the money. So I had to go find other people with money to figure out what that looks like. And so you start associating with investors and people who want to invest. Well, a lot of times people with money, they don't want to spend the time. Like they're already busy. And they're not interested.
That's their most valuable asset right now.
Yeah, they're not interested in jumping into it. So it's like, so that's huge value. The money's valuable. But it's like, but you can't just have money and have a business. You have to have somebody that does it, right? So now we have to have a craft person, an operator for the business to go do it. And that's why I get so passionate about small business, because I am trying to convince individuals who are great at their job that they should also consider doing that passion and that thing for themselves to actually better the community and better the world. So then what do you need? Well, you can have all the money in the world. You can have a great person to go operate it. But if you don't have a system, you'll still fail.
Yeah.
So that's where I've been creating partnerships between my systems, somebody who wants to invest money and somebody who wants to operate the business. And then we create partnerships and we go out there and we do those things.
Cool.
So we're giving opportunities to people.
Yeah. So you can help someone like start up a business.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you find that when you analyze these businesses on your own, that the problems that they thought they were having are the actual problems, or do you find that they're usually different problems?
Yes.
Yeah.
Both.
That they were off base and what was actually wrong.
Yeah. Sometimes they know, and sometimes it's a blind spot is what I call it. Right. And usually the blind spots is when it comes to something with them, because we all have our weaknesses, or sometimes something with an employee. Like I work a lot of times with somebody who has a small business. They've been in business for a long time and they've had this employee with them for a long time. And what they don't understand is that sometimes the people who got us here can't get us there.
They cannot.
Sometimes us as the business owner can get us here, but we can't get us there. No. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And so and it's really hard for business owners that are founders to let go of that, to be like, no, this is my baby.
Yeah.
Like I was having a conversation a couple of days ago with somebody who I honestly think this person has $100 million idea. Easy. But I don't think they
whisper it to me.
Yeah, I'm like, tell us. What is
whisper
it?
Yeah.
Well, they're already in business too. They have a $100 million business. They're working on it.
Nice.
And like I can see it, but I don't know that person can take them there. They had a good idea. They got a business started. Now, do they have a place in that business? Absolutely, it's theirs. They figure out what they're good at, but there are other things now that have to start happen for them to truly scale and get there.
Totally.
And it's not their skill set. Like, and how many times does that happen? Like, so for example, we talked about the operational part. That's usually what a founder's good at. But what about sales and marketing? So then all of a sudden they turn into the sales and marketing person.
A lot of them do around here.
Yes. Like, trust me, like I am horrible. Like I'm bad. So I take my bookkeeper and my assistant and like, I'll do all the stuff, get the assessment done, have the consultation, get to the point where I'm like, hey, here are the consulting packages. If you want to do one, great. Now talk to these people because I'm horrible at collecting money. Like, I just don't like to collect money, right?
Like, I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah. And so then it may never get done, or I may never ask for a check. And so then I've had it with sometimes where I'm a month down the road with somebody and I haven't got paid yet.
Literally.
And like my assistant, my bookkeeper, we going to get paid? Hello. And I'm like, yeah, if you get us paid, I guess, because I'm not good at it.
Yeah.
But we don't realize that. So I had to put them in place. And this will help a lot of businesses, but I say it's like this. Like, you go to the dentist, you go back to the dentist, they look at your teeth. He tells you what he thinks is wrong with them and what a plan would be. And he fixes what he can. And then what does he do? He doesn't collect the money. No. He doesn't say, hey, by the way, it's going to be $350. Can you Venmo me? Yeah. He says what? Go out to the front desk.
Go check out.
They'll take care of you.
Yeah.
And they do what? They collect money, they bill, and they set up the next appointment. Like, it happens naturally, right?
Yeah.
But for us, we don't do it that way. We're like, oh, shoot, now I have a business. Now I got to collect money. Now I got to be the sales guy. Now I got to be the marketing guy. I got to be all these things, right? And then all of a sudden, the thing that I'm good at, like a dentist, being a dentist, like, could you imagine if a dentist spent half his day back there looking at teeth and half his day up there making new appointments or scheduling?
So at what point though do you, I guess, is there like a number that you're like, all right, you're ready for employees and expanding in that way? Because those things all sound fantastic, but to a lot of businesses, that's also money that they might not have.
Right.
You know, at a startup.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So your cash management, your cash flow, everything has to align, and there has to be margins available. There have to be dollars available to do that. Right.
For sure.
But I honestly see that every once in a while. I see the other way more. I see the point where the cash would offer it, but they just don't want to let go of stuff. And then once they've done it for so long, they don't want to let go of it now. Even in the beginning, like, I hate sales. But then after they've done it, then they're like, well, I'm the best salesman that we have. It's like, now they're stuck, right? And so there is, and then this is what I like to say is like, so first of all, you have to have the cash. There has to be some growth there.
Gotta have fuel tanks.
Yes, you gotta have fuel tanks. Anybody who's ran their own business knows that you are the dishwasher, the janitor, the toilet cleaner.
We know it.
Yes. Here's a funny thing.
We're everything.
I'll prove this to you. This happened to me about a month ago. So I have a client, he's meeting me at my office. He's from Utah, but he had to come up here for business. And so he's like, let's just meet at your place. I'm like, sweet. So I'm in my office, and where I have an office in Idaho Falls and Rigby, but in Rigby, the office is kind of more like a conference room up above. And I just have my stuff there because I land there. Yeah. So I'm working, and anyways, I run down to the bathroom, and I realize downstairs bathroom, the bathroom needs cleaned.
Oh God.
Right? So I start cleaning the bathroom. And then I'm like, oh shoot, I think I got a phone call. So I get distracted. So I left, and I'm like, after this phone call, come finish the bathroom. I left everything in the toilet, like half cleaned, right? And then
sounds right.
And then I forgot.
Yep.
So I end up back upstairs on the phone, and then I'm done, and I just hang up and I just start working.
Okay, back to work.
My client comes in, who's a business owner. He comes in. He decides he needs to use the bathroom before he comes upstairs. It's
literally the first thing they're always like, can I go use the bathroom? And I'm like, God dang it.
Right. So he comes in, he goes to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And I hear him come in, And it's taken him a long time.
Did he finish cleaning?
He finished cleaning it.
No.
He finished cleaning my bathroom. Do you know why?
That's
because
nice
he's
of
a
him.
business owner.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, if it wouldn't have been halfway cleaned, but like when he walked in, he was like, I know exactly what happened here.
Literally,
He's like,
though.
but he's that way. Like an employee wouldn't do that. An employee's like, well, that's not my job.
Yeah.
Right. But he got it. So when you own a business, you do everything. As soon as you have the cash available to, and this is my rule. If you like to do it, you should keep it. If you're really good at it, you should keep it. If it's critically important to the business, you should possibly keep it. Other than that, if you don't like to do it, if you're not good at it, you have to be honest with yourself. If you don't like to do it, you're not good at it. You should give it away. Here's the key. If you have cash to do it and somebody else can do it 80% as good as you can, you need to get rid of it.
Okay.
You need to get rid of it.
It's a good tip.
Yeah.
80%.
Someone can do it 80% as good as you.
That's my
it's
rule.
Worth it to just.
That's my rule. Because then what it does is it releases your head from thinking that someone has to do it as good as you can.
Sure.
Because nobody's going to do it as good as you can.
It's true.
They're not.
The goal is to get them there and eventually, but
we tell ourselves that, but they can. Like my assistant does a lot of some of our it's not really marketing, but if we have to put together an information packet for an investor or for something like that, like she'll put those things together, right? And like I was trying to do them for a while, and then finally I just let go. Takes
so much time.
I was like, and all of a sudden, like I remember the first time, like she's awesome too, and I remember the first time, like I send an email off, and I'm thinking, I'll see that tomorrow or something, and like within 30 minutes, she sends it back to me. It was something stupid, but like when I get into that stuff, like.
You're like, this took me all day.
I was like, it took me all day. And not only that, it looked good. I'm like, I spent all day and it still looks like crap, but so it was like, oh yeah, that's awesome. Right. And so, but then here's the other thing too. And I'm preaching to I'm not good at this. I'm not always good at this, but the things you have to give up first is your inbox and your calendar. Like you have to give those things up. People think, I've got to see the emails. No, you don't. And you'll spend so much time there. Think how many times during the day we check our emails and then we lose a half an hour or 45 minutes on whatever trail we're chasing, right? So my assistant checks the emails. Anything that's important makes it to me. Anything that doesn't, I don't even see it. And guess what? I don't miss it. I don't miss it. It's like at home when I'm horrible because I put piles around and then my wife will let them sit there for a certain amount of time. Bless her heart. She's patient.
Like ADHD piles or something.
Yes. I don't know.
I have those a lot. Yeah. Our house also looks like
she has good patience with me.
Half-done projects.
She has good patience. She'll let them sit there for whatever time. And then she'll just and it literally doesn't matter. And like 90% of it, I never ask for it again. Like 10%, I'm like, hey, where'd that go? And then we got to find it. But a lot of the times it's like, I never even asked for it again. But I was just like, needed it. And so like we can give those things away. Like it's okay. And we'll never even notice like the email that was a junk email that took 5 minutes of your time because you were trying to figure out if it was or wasn't or what it was. You'll never see it and you'll never miss it. You'll never miss it.
So for your assistant, did you just put out like an ad to get your assistant or did you know her already?
No, she's virtual. She lives in California.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's virtual.
Cool.
So yeah, I think that.
So you're just on a virtual assistant.
Yeah, the world of the virtual assistant is real. Actually. Yeah, it's real, and she's awesome. And you can even do like, different countries and overseas and stuff like that. But then there's a language barrier a lot of the times, and so like I prefer for that. So for someone working that close to you, I prefer somebody that I know I can communicate with. Yeah, there are some other projects we'll use this, somebody overseas, and it's okay. But for that one, like your assistant, that you got to be kind of lockstep with them. You know what I mean?
We're kind of at that point with ourselves where you want to hire a video editor, and I've looked online at people across like in other countries and stuff, and there's great work out there. It's just like now trying to figure out how to incorporate that into my workflow and make it work with timelines and communicating ideas and stuff like that. But it's like definitely like the hurdle. It's like, how do I pass off the torch to someone else and
for sure
like figure that out? So
and then like always keep this in mind. You have to slow down to speed up. But so
which is tough because it's like really hard to take your foot off the pedal sometimes with that.
So you're asking yourself like, if someone else can do it 80% as good as I can, I need to get rid of it, and I'm going to have to slow down to speed up. Like sometimes it's just about changing our mentality. Yeah. Because when we know that's the expectation, we relax a little bit about it. if we never set those expectations in our head, we'll never get rid of it. Because we'll be like, someone else can't do it as good as I can. And every time I try to show someone how to do it, it costs me more time. I might as well do it myself.
No, literally. Those are always the holdbacks there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's a good point.
Yep, absolutely.
It's hard to let go of those reins.
Oh, it's way hard. Yeah. It's way hard until you do, right? It's way hard until you do.
It'll be so amazing. We did something recently that we were like, we should have done that.
I think one thing that's
ago.
A little trickier, at least in my head, maybe I'm overthinking it, but with like the video editor, is it because it's a creative thing, I can give really thorough directions on what I want, but they can still interpret that a little differently, whether it's a communication barrier, just an interpretation thing, and like spending that time fixing it. But again, like you just said, it's just slow down to speed up, because that's something I would probably run into a couple times, and then they'd learn and
you
improve.
Figure it out.
Yep. And once you find the other creative part too, like so my assistant, she does it better than I do. Now it's easy to let go. So sometimes we don't find, like I went through a bunch of assistants.
There's way better editors out there than me. Like I've seen it.
Yeah. And so finding that, like the interesting thing is, if you're built to be an entrepreneur, not everybody's built to be an entrepreneur. We all have different risk tolerances, right? And so some people, like I have one guy who's worked for me for a long time, and I tell him all the time, like, hey, I want you to be part owner in one of these businesses with me. And he's like, no, I don't want to. And I'm like,
he's just cool
why?
With
what he's actually almost as against it as I am about wanting to own a business, because I'm very passionate about that. He's almost the opposite way. And it's the way that we're all built for risk.
I've met some people like that who like the salary, and they like just knowing that they're getting that paycheck. And
and even the risk of, like, so you talk to people all the time, like in a construction company, it's like some people start to get the thought in their head, well, what happens if I have a truck running down the road and it hits a school bus? And now it's all about risk.
Just all this crazy.
So some people just don't even want the liability of ownership because of the risk, which is fine. And I realized with this individual, I realized with this individual, I'm like, you know what? I've got to. I don't need to change him. He's where he wants to be. I can be where I want to be. We can both succeed together. Like, why am I trying so hard? And so when you start to talk about that creative person, like there is a creative editor out there who just wants to work for someone, and you're the entrepreneur. So like, then for you, it's all about growing and scaling the business. And then someone else wants to go help you do that. And like you said, they'll be better than you, or 80% as good as you, or whatever that ends up being.
So I love it.
It's a good point.
It's a really good mindset shift.
It's a hard pill to swallow and,
it is.
and put to action, but
it is.
But it's the next steps to like growing your company. It's just literally letting go.
And that's awesome too, because the question is, what are your goals? Like, that's one of the first things we do with somebody is like, what are your goals? Because if your goal is to build a $3 million company, maybe you can do that yourself. And so then we do it different, right? But and in every industry is different. But if your goal is to build a $3 million company in another industry, you're not going to do that without 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 people. And so now we have to structurally do it different. And so it depends, you know, what is the end goal? Like Stephen Covey always says, start with the end in mind. Like, what's the end goal? And I don't think people do that enough. Like in the motorcycle world, that was us. We're like, oh, we love to ride Harleys. Now these custom cycles are cool. We want to do that. Let's go do it. And there was like no end goal in mind. Like, you could probably still ask us today, like, what was your goal? What were you trying to do? Like, well, I got a couple of cool bikes that are still in my shop. Like, that was kind of cool. Was that the goal? Or was the goal to create a business? Or was the goal to compete with Harley Davidson? Like, what was the goal?
Like, what are we doing here? What are we wasting our time with if we're not? If there's no end goal.
And usually what people do is, oh, I like this. I've got a good product. People buy it a little bit. Oh, so now I'm going to sell more.
Now they're a business.
And now I'm going to sell more. And now I'm going to sell more. And it's like, there's no goal. It's just sell more, sell more, sell more. You know, and that's not, so then we don't build it because we don't have the end in mind.
If you don't, you got to have your benchmarks for success. You're like, you just don't know. So sometimes, sorry.
No. Are you into like the beginning of the year, kind of like the manifesting and setting goals throughout the whole year? And like, have you heard of that? Where people do like a New Year party and like, be like, I'm going to do this
based on his
much in business.
I'm going to say no.
Well, so not
maybe
like
it's the Gen Z.
I love and so not like in a party formal setting or anything. I love New Year's resolutions. I love affirmations.
Yeah.
Like I do. We had a scenario in one of our businesses where we needed to get a certain amount of growth. And so I was talking to our sales guy about it. And I said, hey, we need to go do this by then to be able to succeed. It was actually one of those scenarios where we were adding some cost before we had the revenue, which I don't always recommend. But in this case, we had the opportunity. So I said, we're going to do this, but now this is what it means. So we're very clear on our goals. And they were very aggressive.
Yeah.
And he was looking at me and I said, can you do it? And he's like, yeah, but you could tell he was just saying because
fear is very motivational.
Yeah.
We had a lot of fear in our retail experience.
Right.
With the motivation.
The motivations. Yeah. So we had to do this by, and I'll just tell you, we had to find $2 million worth of revenue in 2 weeks. Right.
Yeah.
And you could tell he's like,
what was the industry?
It was construction.
Okay.
Right.
So it's possible. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Totally,
it's possible.
Yeah.
It's possible. Anyway, so he's like, okay. And this is like on a Tuesday or something.
Yeah.
And anyways, by Thursday, he's like, hey, I got a contract, $400,000.
Literally.
And then by Friday, he's like, hey, I got a contract, $600,000. I'm over $1 million. And I was like, dude, and I was kidding, but I was serious. I said, speak it into the universe and it comes back.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, and then pretty soon, bam, we hit the 2 million. And I'm like, that's how it works, right?
It's true.
I'm not saying we just walk around being like, I want this, and it comes and happens, but
I absolutely believe in the manifestation.
For sure.
But if you're working towards those goals in conjunction with the manifestation.
Exactly. We had a clear path.
Yeah, you can't just say it. And just
you're actively trying to do it. So it should.
Yep.
It's like when you're shopping for a new car that you like, and all of a sudden you start seeing that car everywhere.
For sure.
And same thing. Yeah.
It's awareness. That's what it is.
Thoughts,
like if we say, hey, we need to go find $2 million worth of work, it's all of a sudden when we're strategic about what we do and we believe in it, all of a sudden the awareness leads us to those opportunities. Those opportunities were there all the time. We just weren't aware of them. We just didn't know because we weren't looking.
Yeah.
Right. So like a lot of the times it is out there. Whatever you want your business to be is out there.
Yeah.
It's just we're walking around kind of siloed and we don't have the awareness because we've never formulated it.
Yeah.
By manifestation, affirmation, whatever you want to call them.
And knowing what your goal is.
Knowing what
your goal is.
Yeah. When you start with a new client, do you set these like clear expectations with a timeline? That way, if you don't hit goals, it's like you can not put blame on, but
drop them.
Know if it's if they're the problem, if you're the problem. Like, are you ever under like a deadline like that where you know your results and your ideas have to work? Otherwise, they're like, I'm going to the next
what
guy.
What am I doing? Yeah, absolutely. Well, and the other thing is too, like I'll give a money back guarantee to anybody I work with. Like if at the end you didn't get what you think your money's worth, whether it's because we didn't hit a goal or we did hit a goal or whatever, like there's a lot of things that can prevent you from maybe hitting a goal exactly.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I'll give you your money back. If you come to me and say, hey, I'm not satisfied, like I'll give you your money back. I've never had that happen yet, but do we not hit the goals? There's been a couple of occasions where we didn't, but are they closer to it than they ever would have been? Sure. Yes. I think I know every one of them would say.
So the conversation at that point isn't we failed. It's just like, what can we do different to get that last little bit? Because they know it's working. It's just
which is business, right?
Because, sure.
I recommend when we first sit down, we put 1, 3, and 5 year goals out there. We don't do that because we're gonna be there. I mean, we want to be there, but we put it out there because we have to know strategically what roadmap it takes to get there.
Yeah.
Sure.
But then if we're a little bit short or we're a little bit further, that's part of the journey. That's part of the deal. And all the little that we take in between, like that's just part of business. Like that's just what it is, right? And so, but I have had one experience with a client where we both mutually agreed that we weren't going to make progress.
Yeah.
Whether it was their end or my end, like I don't care.
Yeah.
But we got to the point where we were like, okay, because of circumstances, we're not moving forward. And I told him, I went to him and I said, I don't want to take any more of your money.
Yeah.
Because if you're not getting a result and there's some things preventing us from getting the result. So maybe at a later time, maybe like who knows, but we needed to end that agreement because it doesn't matter. Like it's at the end of the day, it's about the result. Like what are we going to get?
Yeah.
So
not wasting time.
Okay.
For sure.
So as we near the end of the podcast, do you have advice for someone who's wanting to pursue their own business? It's a very big, big open-ended question.
I'm sure you have a lot of good advice.
I'm sure you have a lot of advice.
Well, the thing that I would say is like,
besides hire you, but
follow your passion and find a mentor. Like that's, so we just did this event. Coach Gonzalez is the high school coach at Rigby High School, football coach.
Okay.
Great program. And it's a great program. My kids played for him. It's a great program, not because of their strength and conditioning program, their weightlifting program, their drills, their practice. It's a great program because he knows how to build a program. So him and I got together and he dissected how he builds a sports program. And then I turned that into how we build a business. And we did an event a couple weeks ago. And we had everybody come. And, you know, in the coaching world, so you guys know who John Wooden is. John Wooden coached UCLA basketball. They won 10 championships, national championships in 12 or 13 years. Oh, wow. Crazy. Yeah. Most successful ever. Yeah. And they asked him, they're like, how many people come? How many college men's basketball coaches come ask you for advice? And he said, none. None.
Like, what?
The coaching world, it's like this competitive world where nobody does. The business world.
They all think they know best.
Yes. And they're like threatened and competitive and ego. They're like, oh, I'm not going to ask him. Right. Yeah. So we do this event and there's like between 60 and 70 people who pay to come to this event. And like, it was an awesome event.
It's like a coach specific.
Well, we were marketing it to coaches or business people. Yeah. Like 2 coaches showed up. And if I would have been a coach around here, I would have been in that room. Yeah. 2 coaches showed up. Business, full of business people. And this is what I know. Yeah. Mentors. Like if you're in business, there's somebody out there that's been there before and will mentor you. Totally. Like it doesn't matter if it's me or not. Like there is somebody that will. There's somebody that will, right? Like how do we provide value to them? How can we get in their space? We talk about affirmations and manifestations. Like I'm a huge believer in the law of association. So we're the average of the 5 people we hang around the most. And so who are we around? Like go find yourself in a place where you're the low end of the average. Because it will bring you up. Yeah. Now that's sometimes a hard place to be because everyone else can look at you like, what are you doing here? You don't belong, but you'll find your place somewhere. And even if the average is only here, get around those people, get to here, and then go find new ones. And I'm not saying just jump around for gain, but I'm saying that naturally you're going to start to associate with people. I don't know how many people introduce me to somebody and then introduce me to somebody, right? And there is somebody that will mentor you. Yeah. Like, so if I was gonna start a business, first of all, we have to follow our passion and not get discouraged by what the world thinks today. Because if we're going to do that, we're going to go to school, get a good job, get the benefits, retire. So my wife says, oh, you're never going to retire. And I think she's right. Because if you love what you're doing, you don't retire. You don't retire. People who retire are people who are stuck in a job. They hate what they're doing and they're looking so forward to a date on a calendar where they can quit. And then not only do they quit, they start dying because their whole world changes. Away. Now, everything that got them up every morning is gone. And it becomes about crazy things like checking the mail.
Literally.
Like all of a sudden it's
conspiracy theories.
What kind of mail did I get? Or they talking about politics and all this stuff. And I'm like,
just ranting.
Keep your mind engaged in something. So like when I have partnerships or investments or helping people, like if somebody says, hey, can we go to lunch? And you go to lunch and you engage in a good business conversation with them to help them, like that keeps your mind engaged. Yeah. And my wife is right, because I will never retire. Now, do her and I have goals? Do we want to go places? Do we want to spend a considerable amount of time not working? Absolutely, and we will. But it doesn't mean that we're retired. It just means that we've also built a business and a system that doesn't require us to be there every single day, right? And the cool thing about it is I'm 45. Like you can build that at a younger age. So that you can actually be disconnected from it, but still connected to an enjoyable point before you get to be 65. There's no number on that. There's no number. Like 28, 27, 23, 45, 72. There's no number on it. You just got to build it. You build it, right?
Yeah. No, I like that. I really like the idea of just thinking like long-term with businesses, because you see so many fads and like things and people even on social media come and go, and it's like, how do you make it last?
Well, that's really good advice.
And it's like the stick-to-itiveness, if I know that's not a word, but whatever that is, like even you guys know, someone told me the other day, you guys probably know this better than I do, the average podcast, like 99% of podcasts never make it past like episode 8, right? Or whatever it is.
I'm sure.
Like, so you guys just sticking to it makes you in the top 1%.
It's actually what we would tell ourselves. That's what we would tell. That was our self-motivation with like every podcast. When we get past like 10, it was like, all right, we got to keep 11. Like, it's just,
and I think we're at like 52, 53 now, so we'll take it.
Which is awesome. And the thing is just sticking with it. Like you're going to outlast, right?
You got to start at day one somewhere.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden that thing happens or whatever it is, you know what I mean? Or and maybe it's not even about, for you guys, it probably is about the podcast, but maybe it's not even about the podcast. Maybe it's a relationship or an introduction or somebody you meet along the way that then completely changes the trajectory of it, right? So like, but
absolutely,
but if we don't stick to it, then what happens?
We never know. Okay, so where can people look you up? Because you said you weren't too much on socials.
Yeah, prevaillegacy.com is, our website, all the contact information there. There, we do have some social media stuff going on. And so that's out there too. So yeah, absolutely.
And if they reach out, they'll get you or your assistant?
The email will come. She may respond or I may respond. So either way,
if it takes 30 minutes to respond, it's her. If it takes a day, it's you.
Yeah, or a couple. If it's quick, she's really good about that. I think my cell phone number is listed on there too. Like, so there's all that, but
cool.
Absolutely. There's a link actually to our calendar too, where they could just get on and then schedule something as well.
Nice.
That way. So there's a lot of
first
ways.
Step would be going to your website, getting that document, the 30-page document, and just doing some self-reflection.
Yeah. There's a link there for the assessment itself, and you could fill that out and then you get it. Like it's yours to do whatever. And then if we could sit down and have a conversation and talk about the different parts of it, great if that's a value, and then go from there.
Well, that's great.
Cool.
So
cool. Sounds like a great service.
Okay, well,
a lot of people
check him out on his website, and if you've made it this far, subscribe, follow, like the podcast. That means a lot.
Yes, all the things.
That's it.
And thanks for listening.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.